Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Okay, you're welcome along to the football show. Very happy to say Mr. Kevin Kilbane joins us. Big happy Mayo heading him. Hello.
Hi Joe, how you keeping?
Yeah, very well. I'm told you couldn't even see the game. You were listening on Midwest in agony.
Yeah, Michael D. We had partisan commentary all the way I had at the weekend, Joe. It was great stuff. And I watched it all back. I've watched it back since, but it was just, it was an incredible listen when I was listening to it live, and obviously watching it back afterwards. There was so many key moments, wasn't there? So it was great. It was great stuff. And, you know, one more hurdle to get over the line now, but hopefully that can happen. But we'll see. We take nothing for granted, you know that.
I love that you're talking like one of the players here.
Well, you don't, do we? Well, let's be fair, Joe. How many times we've been in this position over the years where we've had this conversation, you and I. Yeah, this is it now. This weekend is going to be the one, absolutely. So no, nothing for granted, and there'll be no Mayo person that'll be taking it for granted at all. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, it was an incredible game. You'd need to watch it back about 2 or 3 times to get all the moments. So many key moments, so many extraordinary little passages of play. It was an epic. It was like this very visceral occasion.
Yeah. It was absolutely amazing. It really was. And you looked at little things. I was actually just, when I was watching it back last night, just thinking, you know, Conor Loftus-Point right on the stroke of half time to take it to a 6-point game. And that was obviously a huge moment, wasn't it? And the bit of a breeze that Mayo had with them in the second half as well, and the momentum that they gained from the first 2 or 3 minutes of the second half, it was just unbelievable. And then obviously Rob Henley with that at the end. You know, I think every Mayo man and woman were delighted with him, and you know that he got that moment at the end of the game to do that. It was just incredible. And as I said, I think we're all delighted, and I'm sure there's one or two others in my position at the weekend that would have just absolutely thrilled with it all. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. Will you fly back for the final?
I don't think I can, Joe. I don't think I can come back. I was absolutely nailed on to get it all sorted, but I don't think I can. I don't think I can get back. Our little girl here starts school on the Monday, so it's just a bad weekend for us. So I don't think I can get back. So no, family matters, I suppose.
You're maturing. I respect that.
Yeah, exactly. What would I have said a couple of years ago? There wouldn't have even been a question, would there? It wouldn't have even been a thought in my head.
So let's talk football. Really interesting opening weekend. We've already talked Man City Spurs are good with Pat Nevin, so we won't labour that point. I am curious though, as somebody who's been in dressing rooms and understands how these Harry Kane type dilemmas work for both player and dressing room and club, what do you make of the way he's played it over the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think we all knew the way he was going to play it. Certainly, once the message was coming out at the end of the season, even prior to the Euros, that he wanted to go. It was just prior or just short of him actually saying it around the Euros. Look, I'm gone. I'm desperate to leave the place, which of course he absolutely is. I've said it to you. I've been on with you so many times, Joe, haven't we? We've had this sort of conversation around a player when they're about to leave a club, and I've seen so many players absolutely shafted by clubs through the course of my career. Not at the level of Harry Kane, absolutely, but where the club had every single bit of power within them to do whatever they wanted. You know, players training at 6 o'clock in the evening, round the clock, just to piss them off, essentially, just to make sure that if they're not going to sign a contract, they're going to make it as difficult as a stay as they can for the player. Whereas it is different now. We're in a different era, in a different game, and the player does have the power invariably with what's happening. So I think he's played it exactly the way that he feels as though it should be played. Daniel Levy's notorious in it seems from what clubs have said over the years in dealing with him and getting deals over the line, first of all, whether he's buying or selling. So I think Harry Kane's got a battle on to try to make this deal get over the line. But the only thing he can do is just do it right by his contract, turn up for training, do the right things. But it just, I just feel as though that maybe the conversation at times could be a little bit forthright between the player and and Daniel Levy, because I would imagine that Levy and Kane have said very little to each other. And Levy, because of Kane's stature within the club, I think they could pick up the phone to each other and go, look, because Levy knows full well with what's happened over the last few years. And again, we've had the conversation about Kane for 5 years now, it seems, that, look, Kane's going to go. He's going to go this summer, or I'm sure he's going to go this summer. But he's continuously said he wanted to break record at Spurs. So I just like to see the conversation, people being man about it, essentially. Harry Kane being able to pick up the phone to Levy and say, look, this is what's happening. I want to go. You want to get the best possible price for me. I know that it's not ideal. It's not great for anybody here, the way things are going to go, but let's just get this deal struck. But there's going to be a standoff, I'm sure, in the coming weeks before anything can be done. Yeah,
well, it depends who you listen to. Certainly the Sunday Times yesterday, Jonathan Northcroft led with a piece which he said was an exclusive, and the word was that with 16 days left in the transfer window, Spurs will not sell Kane. They feel it doesn't give them enough time to go out and buy. Even if City do pay the 160 million sterling, it says here, Spurs are still very reluctant to sell with just now 16 days left in the transfer window. Now, who knows? I mean, 160 million is very hard to turn down for a 28-year-old, but that's what they're saying, and I'm sure Daniel Levy is leaking this out to the papers, and so that's where we are. Man City yesterday, with Ferran Torres leading the line, and admittedly with, De Bruyne still to get fit and Foden to come back into the side, but they really did look like a team that do need that focal point. I suspect, having lost that game 1-0, having lost the Champions League final 1-0, that their willingness to hit 150, 160 million might just have grown a touch yesterday.
Yeah, and that's normally the case. To be honest with you, Joe, I didn't see the game. Sure. So, but you're keeping across it. You're seeing the results as they come in, and it was a surprise, I think, to most people when they seen the result coming through. But this is what invariably happens when a club is desperate to get a player in, and they know that they're short in a certain position, and they know that they need to get that deal over the line quickly. That you meet the club, the selling club's valuation a lot more quicker after a result like that, don't you? That's what usually does happen. So it's it'll be an interesting couple of weeks. And I know I didn't even see the piece that Jonathan Norcross had written there, but I just think that, and I've said it before as well, around mentally, the mental space that Harry Kane's in right now, is he going to be right? It might be Christmas before he really decides. And I think he will say, I'm knuckling down, I'm going to get on with it. But it might be Christmas before you really start to see the best of him. So Tottenham have lost him for that 6 months, I'd feel, anyway. Certainly 2 or 3 of those months, because he's not necessarily going to be up to speed, up to the pace of things actually physically on the pitch in the coming weeks. So it's going to be a while, I think, before you get him right as it is. And notoriously, Harry Kane has always been quite poor at the start of the season, or his goal-scoring form has always been quite poor at the start of the season. So if that is the case, then what is the point in... if that is the case and that does happen, what is the point in Kane... In Kane staying around the place? You might as well, as you say, at 28 years of age, take that money in January and give Nuno Espirito Santo the best possible chance to get the best players in the next year or 18 months.
I know you did see Manchester United 5, Leeds 1 on the Saturday morning, as it was over here, very early for you over there. So a lot of people got up and watched this game and were looking forward to this game. I mean, it was really interesting on a few fronts. If anyone didn't catch it, Greenwood played through the middle as a 9. Pogba was maybe more in that Rashford role. Bruno through the middle behind Greenwood. Daniel James getting his guaranteed start against Leeds every year, as he will. And Fred McTominay behind them. How did you like Pogba in that role? How did you like Greenwood? What did you make of this game?
Well, you couldn't help but like Pogba, right? I thought... Do you know when he plays in midfield, Joe? When he's playing in a 2 or a 3... He seems to run out of position too freely and leave his team exposed. I think when he is given a more advanced role like he was playing at the weekend, if he runs out of position, it's not necessarily going to hurt the team as much. And clearly you could see without the ball, as I was saying, his work rate was top class, I felt. At the start of the game, I thought his attitude was spot on at the start of the match. But then you could see the touches coming in. And I mean, if you looked at him in the summer, Joe, potentially was... Certainly, before France got knocked out, he's the best midfield player at the tournament across the summer. So he's coming into to this Premier League season in full form, ready to. You would feel as though to really have a good goal this year, whether he stays or goes or wherever he goes, even if he moved in the next couple of weeks. I felt as though that you saw that little bit of player playing with a bit of freedom, given the confidence to go out and play by his manager in Solskjaer. I just thought he was just absolutely sensational. And the rest of the United's team around him, although it was a slow start before they got really going, before the goals started to flow, they looked solid enough. I think they looked comfortable, throughout the game. And I think given the players that's due to come back into that side and due to come in, certainly with Varane adding strength to them as well, United looked a prospect, didn't they? They looked seriously good, given how Leeds played, because Leeds, last season, they started the season brilliantly well. They came up off the back of a brilliant season. Momentum was with them, the high energy that they play. I think they nullified that threat from Leeds. They stopped that real high press that Bielsa puts on them. And I think throughout the game, as it wore on, they just took the total steam out of Leeds, and they looked totally dominant. They looked a class apart as you reached the 70-minute mark of that game. Yeah.
And then so Fernandes did his thing as well. It's odd that he has scored just 6 goals for Portugal in 5 years. So if you get the United version of...
I tweeted that out. I love seeing a tweet from you about United.
Hey, listen,
I do like that.
If you get the United version of Bruno and the French version of Pogba, you've got a team there with those two. So, is Pogba so suited to that area of the pitch that Rashford might struggle to get back in?
Probably not. I think when they're going to be at full strength, you would imagine Pogba will probably be asked to play a little bit deeper, and Rashford will come back in the side. But I think you do learn the message from playing Pogba, and how you play Pogba is if you can play him with a bit more freedom and you get stability behind him, you might even be able to play him as a 10, play him with 2 sitters behind, a 4-2-3-1 system to get him more advanced and having more of an influence with his creativity, with his ability that he's got, because he does switch off defensively. You can't get away from that. I think, as I was saying before, I think he runs out of position at times, leaves his team exposed. And that's where United have struggled of getting the best out of Pogba over the years, when he's run out of position, when he's had to play a disciplined role. He certainly was never going to play for Mourinho, was he, the way that Mourinho lines his sides up. So Solskjaer has been getting the best out of him, or getting better performances out of him over the last year or 18 months since he's taken over. But I think if you look at United in general, they've got too many players in certain positions that Pogba's going to have to play in midfield, and it's just about getting the stability around him in the middle of the park that's going to get the best out of him, I'd feel. Yeah. I don't think he's going to play. He's not going to play ahead of Rashford, really, Joe, because you're going to get Rashford and Pogba into that same side for United. They're going to be a better side with those two in it. So you'd think that Rashford's definitely going to play on the left-hand side further forward. Yeah, I would have thought so. It's going to be interesting to see what their best side is. Like, they have an unbelievably strong squad now in terms of, various players, like Sancho was on the bench, for instance, and Cavani to come back in. So what is their best 11 in the bigger games? That's going to be really interesting to see what they find. Like, Greenwood up front as a 9, his finish was sublime. The quality there is just so eye-catching, and he does have those moments where you stop and say, you realise again, he can do that too, and he's got that in his armoury, and wow, this is really exciting. So how quickly, and this with Cavani there as well, it's not urgent, but how quickly can he get up to speed as number 9 to lead the line for United? Greenwood, you mean? Sorry, or Cavani? Well, I'm saying with Cavani, Cavani in the squad, it's not urgent. Like, he doesn't need to do it for this season necessarily, but I mean, you would think he's pretty close to doing it. Yeah, I think so. You can see with the goal. I mean, the goal was great. I think obviously the ball from Pogba was sublime that put him through. But he's quick. I don't think he's lightning quick, is he? I think he's quick, that he can get away from the defender. But even when the Leeds defender was trying to get back across him, I think he had the awareness to step his body across him, just to stop him getting anywhere near him, and then tee himself up for the strike. He finishes brilliant with both feet, doesn't he? So he is. And he's had that full pre-season. He would have been one of the first back for Man United pre-season. He's not had an international tournament to disrupt his development this year. So that's why you probably will see him start a lot of the games up until maybe the end of September, even into October, because of the fitness levels. But I think he's just going to get better and better, Joe. He is. The more games that he plays, obviously he's going to get better and better with the players that surround him, with Sancho probably creating chances for him as well, Rashford, Pogba, and all these players that they've got from the creative sense. He will get better and better. But the luxury that Solskjaer does have, as you say, with Cavani, he's got the two that can come in. And you forget in Martial, this might give him the kick up the backside that he needs, where you might start to see Martial produce some of the form that we know he can produce. It looks as though he's going to be moved on, don't get me wrong, but he's a name you forget. For all his ability, we talk about Pogba over the last few years, and he's been a bit like Martial. We've waited for Pogba to seriously kick on at times. He's not necessarily done it in the big games. He's not necessarily had the defensive mind on his game, Pogba. Martial's been the same. I think United don't look great when he started matches, but when he's came off the bench in certain games, he looks a world beater. So to have him coming off the bench certainly gives United different options as well going forward. Great options.
Yeah, for sure. We've got this big four then, and so United are very much part of it. You feel just with their talent and the moments they can produce, they might not need to dominate games, because they didn't dominate enough games last year. They're often just a team that come up with great moments of quality because they've got such brilliant players. That should be enough for them to beat a huge amount of teams across this Premier League season and to really increase in the number of points they had at the end of last year. What's the concern with United? What is the weakness for you that would jump out in terms of actually winning a league title this year?
You would have said defensively, wouldn't you? The way that they've gone forward at times, and as I spoke about Pogba and certain players that's playing in the middle of the park that haven't necessarily been able to provide the stability to, whether it's Wan-Bissaka or Luke Shaw that's getting forward in that defensive structure. But Varane coming in there gives them that pace that they can actually go. They can leave Varane back one-on-one at times, and they're going to be fine. He's got the pace to deal with anything. It is in midfield. I just feel I like McTominay. I don't necessarily, and I've said it constantly about Fred, he's done quite well over the last year or so for United, but I don't see him as being a real dominant player that's going to control the game for United. He's a high energy player rather than someone that's going to control the ball for them. That's why they need McTominay alongside him. Matic is not the answer as well. He's probably on, certainly on the wane in his career terms anyway. So they probably need somebody, a midfielder or someone that's going to give them that stability in midfield that's going to play behind Pogba, as I was saying earlier. But they look to me like they've got a strong 1 to 18 now. Goalkeeper, of course, is Henderson going to be that that main player for them alongside De Gea? I don't know, Joe. I don't know. Maybe the goalkeeper's seriously a position that they've not got a world-class goalkeeper at the moment in there, have they? But I think in general, the squad, Joe, looks very, very strong. It does look strong. You have to say that. Yeah.
So the Premier League season kicked off the night before. Brentford 2, Arsenal 0. Thomas Frank, with the kids in the crowd, warmed the heart. Hey Jude being sung. Yeah. Brentford Community Stadium. I mean, I know if they stay in the Premier League, within 2 or 3 years, it'll be the Qatar Airways Stadium. But for now, it's lovely that it's called the Brentford Community Stadium. So there was a nice little touch of romance to kick off the Premier League season. And it'll be interesting to see how Brentford go. As for Arsenal, I mean, you just run out of things to say about Arsenal because it's so grim and it seems like they're flailing. So they were 8th last year, Kev. You look at the Premier League as it stands this year, the big four will be the big four. You would back Leicester to go 5th again. Last year, West Ham and Spurs finished ahead of Arsenal. Leeds were behind them. Everton were behind them in 10th. Arsenal were about 8th. Everything just points to Arsenal finishing about 8th again and very little progress.
Yeah, I agree. 8th to 10th looks probably where they are. And to look at the goals they conceded, particularly the second one, long throw, bouncing in the penalty area. And if you looked at them throughout the game, Joe, as well, I have been critical of Xhaka over the years, but look at him across the course of this summer at the Euros and how well he played for Switzerland. Now you're seeing what Xhaka is all about again, aren't you? Really, and that's how I felt with Arsenal. There's something that's gone wrong over the last 10, maybe even 15 years there at Arsenal, that they've not been able to get themselves out of it. No matter how many players they've brought in to try and change the situation, they could go on. Who have they got the next two now, Joe? Is it Man City and it's not Spurs, is it? They've got 2 of the top sides in the next couple of games, haven't they? I know Man City's one of them. But they could give Man City a great game and go up against them. They could play counter-attacking football against them and maybe even get a result. But it is, whoever it would be this season, whether they're going to be playing Wolves, Brighton, as it was Brentford at the weekend, whoever they're going to play when they come up against that type of team, you never fancy them. You never fancy them because all those sides think they've got a chance against them. Go and press them high when they're in possession of the ball. Are they good enough to really soak up pressure in the games when they're under pressure as well? They're not. That's what it is. There's a real weakness there again about them. And, watching Everton, I would say certainly at the weekend. You're saying obviously they finished ahead of them last season. I think Everton are probably in a better position than Arsenal right now. So they're slipping maybe out the top 8 again, and that's the way that it looks to me. So I think it's going to be a struggle of a season for Arsenal again. Yeah.
Yeah, they have Chelsea next week, and then they're away to Man City. That's the next 2 for Arsenal.
Chelsea, Man City. Yeah.
And the Lacazette Aubameyang situation seems very shaky as well. So, Balogun started up front. Lacazette, there's been speculation for some time that he wants away. He's in the final year of his contract. And then Aubameyang, who didn't have his best season last year, he comes into this season off 1 goal in his last 11. There are now reports of a certain coolness in the relationship between him and Arteta. Don't know to what extent that's true or not. They signed Ben White, obviously, in defence, although I saw Jamie Carragher was scathing over Ben White, says he doesn't think he's a dominant enough defender. But the Lacazette-Aubameyang situation, on top of just this cultural issue at the club, means I don't really know how this improves or how Arteta gets to grips with it. Thus far, Arteta speaks very calmly and speaks quite well, and obviously, we know what a great player he was, and he was alongside Guardiola, so he's seen how things should work, and yet it doesn't really feel like much is happening under his watch.
Yeah. Very little's changed since Unai Emery, I have to say that. Very little's changed since Wenger, hasn't he? We're still looking at these frailties, and maybe just going back of what you're saying there, what Jamie Carragher is saying about Ben White, he didn't look dominant enough just to deal with the messy stuff around the game. He's very good on the ball, and I think he's going to be a very good defender maybe going forward, but he's got a lot to learn. And that Arsenal defence is still always, I feel, learning on the job. When there's no real leader that's going to control them at the back. Up front, as you say, with Aubameyang and Lacazette, who are the 2 big players for them over the last few years, they look as though they want away because they're not getting the success. They feel as though that they should be playing Champions League football, or certainly Aubameyang does, doesn't he? So when you're not playing at the top, in the top level as European or world footballers, when they come to play for a top club, they want to be playing Champions League football. And if that's not presented to them season after season, like it has been with Arsenal, there's only one way it's going to go, and that's going to put more pressure on Arteta. And as you say, Mikel obviously played alongside Mikel. He is very, very calm. Nothing would seem to get upset him when he was a player. But sometimes when you're in that position as a coach, you might need to react certain ways in certain circumstances, and that's what it might take with Arteta. He might have to start reacting differently and try to get a bit firmer with that group of players. But it's been done before and it's been said before. So there's huge problems, Joe. There is huge problems, and there's going to continue to be huge problems because Arsenal again are in the position where it's almost like they need an overhaul to get the best out of the team. Yeah.
I mean, they just feel increasingly irrelevant as a club. Martin Keown, I don't want to get you in trouble here with your old teammate Arteta, but Martin Keown, I was reading, was on TalkSport on Friday and was saying of Arteta that around the training ground he has a bit of an ego and isn't necessarily universally popular, was the phrase he used. Would that surprise you to hear that about Arteta?
Yeah, it would actually. It would actually. Yeah. Mikel went about his business certainly when he was a player. He wasn't a very loud in the dressing room. He was certainly a player that, obviously, exceptional footballer, brilliant footballer, but he was quiet and thoughtful about how he'd speak to people, and spoke to people in a very respectful manner. Even when I've met him since we've parted ways across our careers, Mikel has always been a good guy as far as I'm concerned, and I don't necessarily see him being that type of character. But again, coaches react differently when they go in that main job and that main position. So I don't know. I couldn't even comment on what Martin Keown's saying there about him, but he's probably getting the word that could be the case. But I would never have seen that about Mikel. No.
You mentioned Everton. So Rafa and Everton. This is like Paul Joyce going to manage Mayo. This is interesting.
Yeah, I know.
So obviously that was a good start for them at the weekend. I only saw highlights of this game, and certainly Match of the Day were saying Everton were all about crosses. It was quite direct football in a modern way, not just booting the ball long, but it was exciting, and it kind of suited what Goodison Park traditionally want. Kind of, they're not necessarily a fan base down the years who've watched 100 passes in the build-up to a goal. Like even in your day there and Moyes' day, you think of the likes of Baines and Pienaar and just, getting forward, getting down the wings. Football with a bit of tempo to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And sometimes when you use the word direct, it's something that's like, they're a direct side long ball team. That certainly wasn't the case this week. And they've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's brilliant in the air. He scored a brilliant diving header for his goal that he scored. But his hold-up play is excellent. Richarlison, he is hit and miss, let's be honest. He is. But when he has his good days, Richarlison's very, very good. And he can be exceptional at times. But you're right in saying that. They signed Andros Townsend and Damari Gray for the reason that Benitez wants a direct side in the way that they're going to be getting into wider areas, getting good crosses into the penalty area, and they have to get bodies obviously in there to get on the end of them. And it was very much like that. It was, but it was exciting to watch. It was good. And if I use, when I'm talking about direct teams, I would call Liverpool a direct team. I think Liverpool are very like that. They play counter-attacking football, get the ball forward quickly, and play in the opposition's half. And that's the way that I like to see teams playing. I've always felt that that's exciting to watch. I've always felt that when teams are passing forward, running forward, getting into wider positions, putting early crosses into the penalty area, that's how I like to see my teams playing, and I love to watch teams playing like that. So Everton, under Benitez, I think they're going to go down that sort of way. They had a defensive structure. It was a bad error from Keane for the goal. Brilliant finish from Armstrong when he got through one-on-one to score his goal. But other than that, Everton looked very solid. I thought they dealt with long balls played into the area themselves. The set pieces that was going in there, I thought they defended very, very well, which you expect from Benitez's team. That's the way they're going to be. But I think there was a license for Decore to get forward. He's a player I've liked over the years. I liked him when he was at Watford. I think he's a player that should maybe score more goals for the ability that he's got. So he might be a player this year, Decore, that you might see get close to double figures for Everton, and he can give that assistance to Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, or whoever it's going to be for goals this year. So it should be good.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he goes. And however sophisticated football gets, direct play and sticking crosses into a box, no defender, as long as there's football, will enjoy defending crosses, good crosses, because you can't see what's behind you. You have people running across you. You're trying to keep an eye on the ball coming in. There's always a lot going on there. I mean, defenders with everything in front of them, that's where they enjoy a game in many ways, and they're in control of a game. But I mean, you're running back towards your own goal and there's pace down a wing and cross coming in. That's where stuff becomes a bit miserable, and you're defending 20 of them a half. You'll soon get tired of it, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. And Joe, I'd probably say to you as well, I know that you like watching individuals and how they go about things at times in the pitch. Just watch Dominic Calvert-Lewin if you get the chance to watch him in the next few weeks. Watch his movement and how he attacks balls. He'll always make two movements. He'll always pull onto the shoulder of a defender, then try to get across him. He's incredible in the air. He's 6'3", whatever he is, Calvert-Lewin. But his movement in the area, the way that he goes and attacks balls, I think even from longer balls that are played forward to him at times as well, he's so hard to pick up, as you're saying there. But when crosses are going in, he's invariably across that defender. He's on the move first. He's great when, even if the ball's clipped up to the far post, because he times his headers to head them back across goal into dangerous areas. But when it's a cross that's played in with pace, that's what he loves because of how quick he reacts to it. I think he picks up the flight so much quicker than most of the players in the game right now, and that's why I think he's going to score or get close to 20 goals again this season. If not more than 20, he'll certainly get close to that. His movement in the area is just second to none. There's probably other areas of his game that he probably needs to improve on, but when he's attacking crosses, I don't think there's anybody better in the Premier League at the moment.
Okay, interesting. We haven't touched too much on Liverpool this evening. We'll do that tomorrow. Can't fit everything in this evening, and I know you didn't see the Liverpool game in full. But big picture for a second here. Let's make two assumptions for a second. So the Lukaku deal is going through. That's going to happen. Lukaku at Chelsea is, you would think, very promising from their point of view. Let's assume for a second Kane doesn't go to City. Let's just say Daniel Levy digs in. Ain't happening. Kane stays here. You can offer 120 million, not enough time for us to spend the money and get value in the transfer market. So Kane stays. And who knows, that could go either way. If Kane stays and Lukaku, the Chelsea move goes through, and in fact it may have gone through, it's pretty much fait accompli. How is that big four going to come out in the wash then in 9 months' time, and why?
I actually fancy Chelsea to go close this year anyway. I think we were looking at Man United and Man City. We were seeing those two being the two two clubs. But I think off the back of the Champions League success last season, I thought with the one or two signings that they were going to make, I think they're going to make a push. I think they are. I think that's your top three, I'd feel. I think Liverpool probably will finish fourth. I don't necessarily see Spurs. I think they're going to have a good spell in the first few months of the season because how Nuno Espirito Santo would have done his pre-season, hearing the things about how he trains the players, I think they'll be extremely fit. So they could overrun teams early on. Is that quality going to be there towards the back end of the season? I don't know. I don't think that's going to be the case for Spurs. So I think it'll be probably a top six finish for Spurs. And as I said, that's my top four. I think that's the way that it's going to be. I still think Man City might win the league, and then it'll be City next 2 and 3. I don't know. I'd probably go with United. I think it's going to be a tighter league. I do think it's going to be a tighter league this year.
You just broke up a touch there. Give us that last 2 or 3 lines then on how that big four is going to wash out again. I think I heard you say City to still win.
Yeah, I fancy City to still go on and win it. I think Chelsea and United will be very, very close. And I couldn't necessarily say that it's going to be either one of those that finish in the top spot come the end of the season. But I just fancy, I probably only just fancy Man United just to pick Chelsea for second spot. But I think those three are going to comfortably finish in the Champions League positions this season, though. Yeah,
I'd be very similar to you in that, and I would have Liverpool as fourth. I mean, who knows? They could catch fire again. There's just it's hard to imagine the same group of players reaching the heights of pretty much the same group of players of 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think that as well. I do. 2 years older, 2 years. That's not past it. Don't get me wrong with that. There's still an unbelievable amount of quality. There's, I only saw the result this weekend, so I've not had the chance to catch up on that just yet. But they will be strong in the big games. They've got players that could hurt City, they could hurt Chelsea, Man United. I do think that, but I just don't see them being in the top two positions. I don't see it, Joe. I just don't see. From what happened last season, for the amount of goals he conceded, Van Dijk coming back in, yes, could make a difference, although it might take him a bit of time to get fully right and get himself going forward. But I just don't see it. I don't see it, Joe. I don't see they've got enough, and there's been enough spent on that team to seriously go and go again and seriously challenge at the very top of the Premier League. I just don't think with the money that United have spent, City have spent, and even Chelsea now, they've probably looked the fourth best in my eyes. I think that's the way it'll be across the course of the season. Yeah,
and it's not something I feel certain about either. So Van Dijk 10 months out, and Matip is back as well after his 7 months out, and Gomez was on the bench as well, and Konate, who they signed, was on the bench. So suddenly, injuries have all cleared up. Let's presume in 4 or 5 games Van Dijk is back to Van Dijk, and Matip similarly. That frees up 2 of the best fullbacks in the game to do their thing. You would think the midfield will be Henderson, Fabinho, Thiago, with Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Milner a little bit older in support, and then Jota started on Saturday, and then Firmino came off the bench and scored. Salah looked lively. It's can Mane hit his old form, but there's still enough there to make you think, God, there's no reason they shouldn't win the vast majority of the games. It's just, I don't know, the staleness last year was so striking. They just looked so finished last year.
Yeah, I'd probably go along with that to an extent. I just think it's you've got that defensive structure that's coming back into it, and all those defenders that you mentioned there, that's going to give them a bit more stability. Yes, of course it is. But there is other elements, as you say, that they've gone from such a high over those couple of seasons, winning the Champions League, then the Premier League. Then last season, the way that they played and that home streak, was it 7 games losing streak at home? You'd never would have thought that in a million years was ever going to happen with Liverpool under Klopp anyway. So I think they've got too far a distance to travel to get back to the other teams. That's my feeling on it. I think they're still going to be strong and have a say in the title and how it's going to go, because I think they'll have the ability to beat some of the better sides, I feel, that's in the Premier League. But I think a sustained challenge might be beyond them this season. Yeah.
Well, hopefully all 4 go for it. I mean, I don't really think in the Premier League era we've had 3-4 really in the mix, really going for it in the final few games of the season. So it tends to be just 1 or 2, doesn't it? Kev, we will let you carry on. Thanks so much for pulling
Cheers,
over
Joe.
and joining us. Much appreciated. Take care.
Thank you. Thank
Cheers.
you very much. Appreciate
That's,
that. Cheers, Joe. Take it easy.
Kevin Kilbane joining us on the line. Football and Off the Ball with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, the place to go is gamblingcare.ie. We'll take a short break.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now you're welcome back to this evening's football show. Joe Molloy with you. So we had Kevin Kilbane with us